Hi, this is Paul James Caiden, and welcome to the Spirit Side Podcast. In this show, we will endeavor to talk about a wide array of subjects with a balanced and spiritual perspective. We will discuss such things as current events, strange stories in the news, spirituality, the paranormal, and much more. But most importantly, it is my hope that this humble podcast will keep people informed and make a positive impact in the lives of those who listen. So once again, welcome, and I'll see you on the spirit side. Welcome to the Spirit Side, everyone. I'm Paul James Caiden, and today we are going to talk about metaphysics. Is it just mind over matter? Now, when I say the word metaphysics or metaphysical, a lot of people will automatically get the idea that we're talking about spiritual or paranormal things. They will think of ghosts and hauntings, or some people will think of a time that they were in prayer or meditation, and they will say, I heard the voice of God speak to me in that time of prayer or meditation, or an angel spoke to me, or I had this sudden great understanding about something in my life or the world. I had a metaphysical experience. Well, these are one way to describe the metaphysical, but when we talk about metaphysics, that's not what we are talking about. Metaphysics or metaphysical healing would be perhaps best explained by saying there are natural laws in the natural universe, but then there are spiritual laws of the spiritual universe, or divine laws set in motion by God. And these divine laws do not suspend the natural laws of the world of matter, as some people would think when a miracle happens or something supernatural, or sometimes people will read about the healings of Jesus and they will get this idea that God suspended the natural laws of the universe to cause this miracle to happen. Thus they label it a miracle. But someone who practices metaphysics will look at that and say, no, that is not how it works. And what we call miracles are actually just the manifestation of God's higher laws on the law of matter. So the higher laws of God may work in conjunction with the laws of matter to cause a change that we consider miraculous, or those higher laws, or the metaphysics, will come to bear on the natural laws and cause them to change and to be in harmony with those higher laws of God. Now, I hope you understood that. But when we say the higher laws of God, what are we talking about? Well, to try to make this brief and as understandable as possible, a metaphysician or one who practices metaphysics will look at the attributes of God that we find mostly in the scriptures. God is good. God is love. God is peace. God is omnipotent. God is omnipresent. God is health. God is a healer. There are many, many positive attributes of God written in the scriptures, but also any other positive attribute that you could think of belong to God. God is all good. God is perfect. As it says in the Bible, in God there is no darkness or shadow of turning. So God is light, God is pure, God is all harmony. And these are the higher spiritual laws of God. In the Genesis account, as God created the heavens and the earth with each thing that he created, he said it was good. And then on the final day of creation, it says God looked at everything he created and said it was very good. So everything God created was good and very good. It wasn't mixed with darkness and negativity and fear and illness and horrible tragedies. These things came when man turned his attention from God and began to live according to and only by the natural laws of the natural universe. This is what metaphysicians call the fall. God, or man rather, turning from God and his higher ways and his higher laws, and beginning to put all of his faith, all of his confidence, all of his ways of living and doing and being just in the natural laws of the natural universe. So again, I hope you're following that. So when a metaphysical practitioner prays or treats, as they call it, they will treat a situation with prayer. Some call it spiritual mind treatment. Others call it scientific prayer. But the way they do it is quite different than the run-of-the-mill religionist. They won't go to God, oh God, could you please do this for me? Could you help me? Oh God, could you change this? Please, please, please. A metaphysician doesn't pray that way. A metaphysician will focus his attention on those higher laws of God because they still exist. So let's remember, there is the higher spiritual laws of God, and then there is the world, the laws of the natural world. But those higher laws of God can still come to bear on the natural laws of the natural world and cause them to change and come into harmony with God, with the higher laws of God. So it is a higher vibration coming to bear on a lower vibration and causing it to change and resonate with the higher vibration. And just in short, so you understand this, a metaphysician, a metaphysical practitioner will look at the world of matter and they will say, let's say my toe hurts. My big toe hurts. A metaphysical practitioner will look at the toe and say, well, what is causing my big toe to hurt? Matter isn't the master. Matter, it doesn't have a mind of its own. It can't decide, well, I'm just going to hurt. But rather, this is a human carnal perception. We believe that matter is superior. Matter rules us. Again, think of the fall. We live and we die in all that we do by the laws of the natural world. And that is what our faith is in. That is what our confidence is in. So when the Bible talks about the carnal mind or the natural mind, the metaphysical healer or practitioner, that's what they say the carnal mind is. It is just the human natural mind having confidence in the natural laws of the natural universe of matter. So when that big toe is hurting, what is causing it to hurt? It is me giving all of my faith, all of my confidence to the world of matter and its laws. Something's wrong with my big toe. There's pain in my big toe. I better see a doctor. What's wrong with it? But the metaphysician will stop and say, well, now wait a minute. If God is peace, if God is health, if God is all goodness, if God is love, if God rules and permeates the universe, then that pain in that big toe must come into harmony with those higher laws of God, with those attributes of God, and that pain must subside. And a metaphysician will do that by either affirming or by not speaking at all, just simply by meditating on the higher laws of God or a higher law of God. So let's say that my big toe hurts and I'm practicing metaphysical healing and I just concentrate on God is health. God is health. And then I really begin to think about that. What does that mean to me, that God is health, that God is the healer? What does it really mean to me if I say God is peace? And then I come to a place, well, if God is health and God is peace and God is eternal and God encompasses all things and God is, the things of God are greater than the natural things of the world, does that not apply to my hurting big toe? Can I start to have faith and know that my big toe can start to resonate with that healing of God, resonate with that peace of God, and the pain can just cease to be? So that's what metaphysics or metaphysical healing is. But it does start in the mind. It does start with the thought. I am not going to sit here and say, oh my God, my big toe hurts. What's wrong with it? What should I do? I take my thoughts automatically to the higher laws of God, the higher attributes of God. And by doing that, they will cause those higher attributes and those higher laws to come to bear on that natural circumstance and change them and get them to be in harmony with the goodness of God. So now again, I hope that we're going a little deep here and trying to squeeze the definition of metaphysics into a 30-minute podcast is quite a task, but we're trying. Now, you will hear, and I've heard this in the past with some, religious folks who know a little bit about metaphysics. They'll say, well, it's just mind over matter. Metaphysicians, they just practice mind over matter. Well, that's not biblical. That's stupid, Well, it's not. It's not just mind over matter, because any metaphysician will tell you that the minute the human will comes into play, where you start willing something to happen, I'm willing my big toe to stop hurting, then I've failed right there. I've negated the whole thing, because it has nothing to do with what I am willing to happen or trying to make happen. It is simply focusing, meditating on those higher laws and attributes of God until I rise in consciousness, until my spiritual energy begins to rise. And I come to a place where I know this is the truth. God is health. I know this is the truth. I know it in my being. I'm not just agreeing that God is health, or hoping that God is health, or willing that God is health and God will heal me. No, I come to the place where meditating on that God is health, where I come to the place where I know God is health. And when you know it, that's when the crossover happens. That's when the results come. And when we talk about results in prayer, a lot of people kind of poo-poo on the metaphysical movements. Some, they call New Thought. Whether it be, Christian Science or some other metaphysical movement, they'll say, oh, well, they don't believe in doctors. They let their kids die. Well, unfortunately, this is a symptom of the world that we live in. Some people take a truth and they run with it so far that they get out of that truth. And then they let people suffer, they let people die, and there's nowhere in Christian Science or any other metaphysical New Thought movement where anybody ever tells anybody, don't go to the doctor, it's a sin. We don't believe in doctors. Now, I've been around these people. I've gone to their churches. I've gone to their, different meetings of different groups. I've talked to people, and they've all said the same thing. We never tell anybody not to go to the doctor. That's their personal choice, to not go. But we say if you need one, if you need relief while you're doing your metaphysical healing, if you need an assist from the medical doctors, you need to do it. Absolutely do it. So this whole thing where, you get some yahoos, I left Christian Science because my child died because they told me it was a sin to go to the doctor. No, that was their perception of what was being said, not actually what was being said. But I say that to say this, the metaphysical movements actually have the highest track record of healings and results with their form of prayer than any other denomination or spiritual movement on the earth in the world today. Extremely high success rate in praying for the sick or praying for some adverse circumstances in someone's life to change. Even those who say, and I've read articles where people say, have said, Christian Science is quackery, but then they'll turn around and say, but they do have a lot of healings. They do have a lot of results in their their prayers and practitioners when they pray for sick people or for people to have health. So if they're having that many results, then it must mean they're doing something right. We're not going to agree with everybody about everything. But if somebody's having that many results that even the person who says it's quackery has to admit it most of the time, they must be doing something right. They must have a truth that other people don't have or that they're stumbling over. And I know for me, coming out of, fundamentalist evangelical Christianity, and these people believed in healing. They believed in the power of prayer, the power of faith. But if you ask them, well, What is faith? They couldn't tell you. They would tell you it was a spiritual force, that it was not mental assent, but yet they would tell you to read the Bible and agree with the Word of God, or if you pray with someone, the two of you agree in prayer, but it's not mental assent, it's just not agreeing, but yet you have to agree. I mean, if that sounds confusing to you, it should, because it was confusing to a lot of people who ask that question. What is faith? How do I get faith? How do I know I'm operating in this spiritual force of faith that brings results? And I like the way metaphysics defines it. They just say it's the knowing. You know that these attributes of God are true. You know that God is everywhere present, that He is with you. You know that God is love. You know that God is peace. You know that God is healing. And when you come to that place where you know and you have that confidence, you just know, that's when you start getting the results. And things start to change when you pray. And when a metaphysician prays, they may pray by making affirmation. If they're praying at someone's bedside who is sick, they may affirm in the presence of God through Christ that God is health. God is perfect. There is no sickness or disease in God. Therefore, there is no sickness and disease in this person who is made in God's image. They are perfect as their Heavenly Father is perfect. God is health, so this person is a reflection of health. So they may affirm something like this, or they may affirm this just in their mind without speaking, or they just may focus on God is health. And then think about what that means. You know, it's bringing those higher laws of God to bear on the natural laws to cause them to change. Not through suspending the natural laws, but either getting those natural laws to come into harmony with the laws of God, or just simply coming to bear on those natural laws and causing them to change in just such a way that it does almost seem miraculous. It's a higher vibration or a higher energy coming to bear on a lower vibration or a lower energy and causing it to change because it rises that lower energy up into the higher. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's hard to articulate some of these things in the time frame that we have. But some of the ways in which metaphysicians also might pray ultimate truth, as they call it, because God is the only truth. Those are other things that metaphysicians say about God. God is the only truth. God is the only power. God is the only presence. My big toe is hurting. Is that truth, or is God the only truth? That God is healing, God is harmony, God is peace. You see this, how this kind of works up the rungs of the ladder. But some metaphysicians will take their healing meditation from the Bible. They might go in the Bible to where it says God sent forth His word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. They might go to some of the healing or protection verses in the Bible. and just meditate those things. Just sit by the bedside of the sick person, meditating those things. Knowing those things, coming to the place where they know that it's true, that God will send forth His word and heal the person they're praying for. They come to the place where they know, as it says in the book of James, the prayer of faith will save the sick and raise him up from the bed of affliction. They come to that place where they know, but by meditating those healing verses in the Bible, or reading about some of the healing practices of Jesus. So again, it's not mind over matter. It's coming to a place where you know. But how do you get to that place where you know? Well, it comes through prayer. It comes through study. It comes through meditation. Meditating on the attributes of God. Closing your eyes, meditating on them. Talking to God as if He were your best friend. And you do these things, and there comes that point where there's a change, there's an inner change. You have more confidence in God than you do in this natural material world, or even the word and advice of men around you. You have that much confidence in God. It comes with having that intimacy, that fellowship, that study, the coming to that place of knowing. You know that you know that you know. That God is the healer. God is peace. God is love. God is the only truth. God is the only power. God is greater than matter. God still heals today. You know these things. And a metaphysician will look at the stories in the Bible. Take, for instance, the story of Noah. The flood came, Noah got in the ark, everybody else drowned. We know the story. But a metaphysician looks at the spiritual meaning of that story. The floods came, and all of the people drowned who clung to the material world and the laws of matter, the ways of this world. Instead of in God we trust, in matter and in the ways of this world we put our trust. Okay? They were swept away. They drowned. But Noah knew something more. He walked with God. He talked with God. He meditated on the things of God. And so when he got on the ark, it's symbolic of rising in consciousness, rising to that higher dimension spiritually, in your spirit, in your mind. He rose above the natural laws that everybody else was perishing in. It symbolizes that rise in spirit, that rise in consciousness. He rose above it in the ark. His ark of truth. Ultimate truth. God is truth. God is love. God is the only truth. The ark of truth that he built walking with God, meditating the things of God, talking with God. He rose above it all. He didn't cling to it. So those waters represent a rising in consciousness, a rising of the forces of the Spirit within. And so he didn't perish like everybody else. And in closing, I'd like to say this. We've all seen this in action in our lives. We all know someone or have known someone, or maybe that we're that person ourselves. Or we just know somebody that they were so spiritual. They just always seemed so full of joy and happiness and faith. Nothing ever seemed to get them bad, no matter what happened. I knew a man once. His name was Charlie Walker. He was a Methodist. I used to work for a cleaning company, a maintenance company. They done all the malls and a lot of offices, where I used to live, and I worked for them for a while. And he was the owner of the company's father-in-law. And what an awesome guy. He always smiled, always had something good to say to people or about people. Nothing ever shook him. He was never down. He loved God. He always talked about God. I seen him one day. I was shopping. I didn't see him in a long time, a couple of years. How you doing, Charlie? Oh, I'm doing really good. The doctor said I got some prostate cancer. But that ain't nothing. I don't worry about that. And he wasn't worried about it. And he got through it fine. We've all known someone like that. They're just on a different plane. They're so filled with the presence and the Spirit of God and surrounded with that joy, it just comes out of them. And no matter what happens in their life or what happens in the world around them, they just seem to rise above. Everybody in the neighborhood got the flu and almost died, but they didn't get it. The recession came. There was recessions and depressions, but they seemed to be all right. They just seem to be on that higher plane, and like Noah and the ark, no matter what happens, they just seem to rise above it and get through it. Full of happiness, full of joy, full of faith. They don't sit around complaining, boy, ain't this terrible? I'm afraid. Nope, they're like Charlie Walker. The doctor said I got some prostate cancer, but I ain't worried about that. It's a beautiful day. God is with me. That's what he said. Every day's a blessing, and I walk in the joy of the Lord every day, and I don't even worry about that sort of thing. He wasn't fazed one iota, still smiling, still giving you a handshake and a hug. And we look at people like that and we say, man, they're like true spiritual masters. It just seems nothing gets them down, and they rise above all that garbage. All the garbage everybody else is being taken away in the flood by. Well, they're living examples of what metaphysics teaches. The more you take in, the more joy you have, the more you know. And you have more joy, more happiness, more faith, more confidence because you know. You just start to rise above the little issues and the problems and the laws of this material world. And when you pray, man, you always, if not most of the time, see results. And we can all be those kind of people. We're supposed to be those kind of people. That's what belief, that's what faith, that's what metaphysics is all about. It's not just mind over matter, willing something to happen. So again, I know we got a little deep in this one. I tried to squeeze in as much as I could to give you a good, at least some understanding of metaphysics. If you're interested in digging more into this, I would recommend a book. There is an old metaphysical author and teacher by the name of Emmett Fox. That's E-M-M, M as in Michael, E-M-M-E-T, Emmett Fox. He has different books out, but the one I would recommend is called Around the Year with Emmett Fox, and it's a daily devotional. And every day has a little metaphysical thought and how you can put these things into practice and begin to grow in that confidence and that knowing. And if you get it, if you get it September 1st, start right on January 1st. Don't worry about the date. Start at the beginning, go to the end. Read one a day, one a week, one every other day. Just start taking it in. It's a great book. It's not hard to understand. It'll really start getting you a better understanding of metaphysics and rising in spirit, rising in consciousness. And from there, Emmett Fox has other books. There's other great metaphysicians, Ernest Holmes, Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, great book. Or even read Mary Baker Eddy's book, Science and Mind with Key to the Scriptures. Some great stuff in there. And again, don't worry if you come across something that, I don't really know if I believe that particular thing that they believe as far as that goes. That's fine. We don't get all caught up in that. The main thing is that we know that, there are higher laws of the universe, higher laws of God, higher spiritual energies, and when we get in tune with them, by meditating them, thinking about them, speaking them, praying them, knowing that they are a reality and true, man, that's where things really start to change in our lives. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope it wasn't too deep or too far out in the weeds. It was just something that I thought I wanted to make a podcast on because I thought it would maybe be a little helpful for some people and maybe, get their thinking going in a little bit different and positive direction, and maybe start reading some of the books and just cultivating that kind of confidence and knowing that God is for you. He's not against you. He's not hanging around letting, some devil have his way with you, every day, all that nonsense we learned in religion, but God is good. And He's there to help us through our every need, no matter what it is. So again, I really appreciate you listening to the podcast today. And until next time, stay positive, stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you next time here on The Spirit Side.